Hi guys, and welcome back to this course on Windows 10. In this module, we're going to talk a little bit more about working in desktop mode. Now, apps run in desktop mode, and for many people, desktop mode is the mode used most of the time unless you're utilizing a tablet device. And just a recap of something we learned earlier, if you click all the way down in the bottom right-hand corner and click on the Action Center, if you need to switch into tablet mode, you have the option to do so from here. So it's a very quick toggle on, toggle off. So in this module, I'm going to give you an overview of the Windows 10 desktop. We're going to take a look at managing your desktop icons. I'm going to show you something called Peek and Show. And I'm going to show you how you can utilize multiple desktops. So let's start out by reviewing some of the options that we have on the Windows 10 desktop. Now, as we've mentioned before, if we look at the taskbar at the bottom, we can see in the applications that we currently have running based on the fact that they have a blue line underneath them. And whichever one we have open on top, that one is referred to as the active task. Now, a couple of other things that we haven't mentioned yet so far, again, down here in that notifications area, you'll see that we have this little keyboard icon, and this is the touch keyboard. So obviously, if you don't have a touch-enabled device, you can actually still use this by clicking on the number pad using your mouse, but this is primarily designed for people who have touch screens or some kind of touch device. You can type things using your finger. Now, your desktop may look a bit different to mine. The aspect ratio might be different. So for example, I'm using a wide screen. You might also have a different background image to me, and of course you can personalize this to your own tastes, and we're going to talk a lot more about how you can really personalize it, set up the images you want to use, the themes, the colors, all of those kinds of things in later modules. Now, when it comes to managing our desktop icons, if you recall, again, we spoke about these very briefly in a previous module. I don't tend to have too many icons on my desktop. I don't really like a really busy looking desktop. I prefer to pin all my most frequently used applications to the taskbar. However, I do have 3 icons up there. I have my recycle bin because I find that quite useful to be able to jump to really quickly. I have my Microsoft Edge browser, and I also have a link to Camtasia, which is the app I use to record these videos. Now, the only reason that I have Microsoft Edge and Camtasia on my desktop is because I've recently downloaded those, and Windows automatically creates that desktop shortcut for me. So in reality, what I would probably do is come in and delete those shortcuts because I already have those applications pinned to my taskbar. But for demonstration purposes in this module, I'm going to leave them just there. I will say, though, that despite my preference for adding things to the taskbar, if you look at mine, you can see my taskbar is pretty much full up. If I wanted to start adding other icons, it's going to start getting a little bit busy looking. There is a lot more space on your desktop, so it might be that you want to move some of those shortcuts onto the desktop if you find yourself running out of room on that taskbar. Now let's take a look at some of the customizations you can do for these desktop shortcuts. And that's all they are. You can see that they have a little arrow on them. Basically means it's just a way of pointing you to the location where this particular application is stored. And the reason why that is important is because sometimes people think that if you delete a shortcut from this desktop, it deletes the entire application. Don't worry, it doesn't. It simply deletes that shortcut link. So let's take a look at some of the other things that we can do to customize these icons in our desktop. So I'm going to right-click my mouse anywhere on that empty desktop, and you'll see the top option there is View. So this lets me customize how large I have those icons. So at the moment I have them as medium. If I wanted to do them as large, you can see they're extremely big, a bit too big there, or you have small in there as well. So again, entirely up to you how you want to have the sizing on those icons. I like mine at medium. So let's right click again, and we have a sort by option. So this allows you to arrange your desktop icons in a more logical sequence. So it might be that you want to arrange them by name or size or item type or the date that they were modified. So the most recently installed or used would be at the top. Now you can also rearrange them yourself. So just by clicking and dragging these icons, it might be that I decide I want them running horizontally across the screen as opposed to vertically down the screen, I can simply use my mouse to click and drag. And if you're using a touch device, you would use your finger to do the same thing. Now, the icons that you see in Windows 10 in general are standard Windows icons. And they're the same for everybody. So everybody will have the same icon for File Explorer. Everybody will have the same icon for Recycle Bin by default. But you can actually change these icons if you want to. So again, if we right click on our desktop background and jump down to the personalize area, and this is an area we're going to be in and out of throughout the preceding sections. Now I want you to jump down to the themes section, and we're going to ignore all of this at the moment and go right down to the bottom where it says this little link here, desktop icon settings. Now these desktop icons with the checkboxes next to them, these are like your standard Windows desktop icons. And you can see that I only have one of them checked because I'm only showing the recycle bin on my desktop. I don't have my computer or network or control panel or anything like that. But if you wanted to, you could tick these if you wanted to see more of them. So again, if I click on computer and click on OK, and just move this window out the way, you can see I now have that desktop icon that's been created, which jumps me straight to this PC in File Explorer. So let's jump back into that link, and I'm going to untick computer because I don't want that on there. Now another thing you have in here is if you do want to change the icon for any of these, maybe you want something else for your recycle bin, you do have the option to select it and then you have change icon. And it will take you into this little array of icons that Windows provides, and you can change that to something that you like a little bit better. So just be aware that you can turn on and turn off those Windows standard icons to add them to your desktop, and you can also change that icon if you want to. Now a lot of applications when you install them will have their own assigned icon. So I'm in File Explorer at the moment, and you can see here that I have access to my OneDrive cloud storage, and that comes with its own little blue cloud icon. Now if I wanted to make OneDrive a shortcut on my desktop, all I need to do is right click, go down to send to, and one of the options I have there is desktop create shortcut. So if I select that, you can now see that that's added that to my desktop. Another way that you can add items as a desktop shortcut icon is if we go into the Start menu, and let me grab something like, let's just grab this calculator. You can click, drag, and drop, and that will very quickly create a little link for you as well. And if you want to remove any of these, it's a simple process of right-clicking. You have the delete option in there, and as I mentioned before, it doesn't delete the application, it just deletes that shortcut. So a good little exercise for you now is just to practice adding and removing items to and from your desktop. Now another really useful feature of Windows 10 is the peek feature. And you've probably seen a little sneak preview of this as we've been going through the course so far. So if you have several applications open and you want to access something on your desktop, but you can't see the desktop, so currently I have Microsoft Edge web browser taking up the entire screen. I can't see anything else other than that. If I wanted to jump to an Excel spreadsheet that I have open, instead of going through and minimizing down each window I have open to try and find what I'm looking for, a real quick way of doing it is to hover over the icon, so in this case Excel, and it's going to give me a little preview of all of the Excel spreadsheets that I currently have open. And you can see I have 3 of them open. If I want to switch to one in particular, I can just hover my mouse over it and click to select. And that essentially pulls it to the front. So this is a really nice feature. I use this all the time when I'm working with lots of different open documents in order to be able to move about efficiently. Now another option I want to speak to you about is using multiple desktops. So it might be that you have lots of different applications open. You can see here I've got a few different Excel windows open and I want to arrange them in a certain way. Now if we jump down to the taskbar and we need to right click on the taskbar, there is an option in here to cascade windows. And that kind of arranges them in a slightly better way. So if I want to pull one to the front, I can click on the bar and that will bring that one to the front. Now, I will say this isn't an option that I use particularly frequently. I don't find it the most efficient way of working, but some people really like it. So just remember that you have access to it in that right-click menu in the taskbar. Now, if you're someone who really does work with lots and lots of different apps and constantly has lots of things open, so much so that your desktop is really getting full up, it's hard to switch between applications because you have so many things open, an option that you might want to explore is creating a second desktop. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go back down to my taskbar, and you'll see that we have an icon there, which is just to the left of my Google Chrome, and that is Task View. We did go into this earlier. But if I click it, it shows me all of my open applications in a way that's easy for me to see all in one go. Now, one thing that you may not have noticed in this window is right at the top, we have an option for New Desktop. So if I click New Desktop, it allows me to have a second desktop, and you can see I can switch between them. So Desktop 1 contains all of the applications I currently have open, and I can now have a completely different desktop which has nothing running. So essentially, this is almost like having two different computers. So if you find that you're running out of space on one desktop, don't forget you have the option to create another one, and you can open up as many applications as you like. Switching between them, again, is just a simple case of going to Task View and switching between your different desktops. If you decide you no longer need one, if you hover over, in this case Desktop 2, you have that little cross to get rid of that desktop. So again, a really nice way of managing your windows if you're someone who has loads and loads of things open at any given time. All right, everyone, that is all we have on working in desktop mode for this module. In the next module, we're going to be taking a little bit more of a look at managing and using the taskbar, so please join me for that.